here we are with Georganna, and Georganna is a multi-generational Greek here in Tarpon Springs. This is such an honor to be able to speak with you, and Georganna brought me a book that was written by her grandfather, which I cannot wait to read, and I highly recommend anyone who's got a chance. This is something you might want to pick up. We are at the National Bakery, established in 1925, so it's over 100 years old. If there's anything that sticks out in your mind about the National Bakery, what would it be?
Well, I like to think of it as the way to introduce people to Tarpon Springs by way of bringing them the food from here. Anytime I go to a party or meeting, if I start a job at a new office, a new firm, I think this is the best way to introduce them to not just Tarpon, but to me, because this is it represents my identity, where I come from. You come in here and you can see them working, in the back. There's no, like a lot of restaurants, you don't really see the action. You don't see the bakery in the back. You see them here, they just come right out and they're happy to serve. They're open all the time. It's just reliable. 6 to 6 every day, and a lot of holidays. Yeah. So it's, you just know that, I got somewhere to be and I got to bring something, because I was raised, that's how my parents raised me, is never show up empty-handed. And I myself don't eat a ton of pastries. It's just I'm not a big dessert person, but I know how much people love them, and so when I bring it, it just represents to me the uniqueness of Tarpon, and again, like their work ethic and everything. It's just an identity thing, and what represents what's so unique about the character of Tarpon.
Would you say that this is one of the older establishments in Tarpon Springs?
It's one of the older ones, and it's a gem, and it's so unique. They only recently started taking credit cards, which is but it was very cool that they didn't, because if you order something, there's no labels on the packages. They're just white boxes, empty, or the clear ones. So it's very old school in that, it used to just be cash only, and it's kind of like a secret, but obviously not a secret. I mean, look how many people have come and gone since we've been here just a few minutes.
The secret's out.
Right, but just like I was telling you this morning, I took some to Co-Hatch downtown, the co-working space, because they've never had it. And I mean, there's people have lived here for years and just never been here. Everyone knows about Halas, which is great. But this is always where I send people, and then I always bring the little cards with me whenever I bring it somewhere, so they know. And then they always ask questions. Like, where did you get that? Where do I go?
This is a locals place?
I would say so, yeah. Yes.
You would say so? I love that. So,
but I mean, it's great. I mean, touristy, it's a little off, and the Sponge Docks incorporate, it's just Dodecanese and Athens Street, so
just
it's
off
both.
The beaten.
It's right off here, so it's been slammed since we've been here, just half an hour.
Do you happen to have a favorite childhood memory from National Bakery over the last?
Well, to me, so I grew up, here. I live in the house that my grandparents lived in, just down the road. It was actually on the other side of Alter 19, and now
Your
it's
grandparents
on Athens
who
Street. Yes, who
wrote the book.
Yeah. So, and then when I was very little, we worked at the store that my family has down at the docks on the main strip on Dodecanese. So the smells is what, to me, is what it is. And so
I love that.
When I go for my runs and I run at the docks, it just brings, the old factories, it brings you, memories. So it's the smell of the bakery that I love, and that's.
I love that. I get tired if I drive too far, much less run. So if I were to run by here and the smells, I would run right into that door
especially in the morning when they're making the bread. In the morning is the best. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Early in the morning,
so the bread
yeah.
is that the staple that you would say you recommend?
The pastries. I mean, you come for.
So that's the sinful delight.
Everything. I mean, they sell the bread, and then they sell all of the. If you look, they have the rolls for coffee and things like that. And then they have the more delicacies as far as pastries go.
So someone coming from out of town and experience National Bakery for the first time, let's say they watch this video and they're like, you know what? Instead of Hella's, let's go ahead and go to National Bakery. What would you recommend they try?
I recommend, they have the baklava, and most people know that. And so I always say that just because it's something that a lot of people know as far as Greek food is the most popular, I would say, pastry that people know.
Yeah.
So that, and then there's this very special treat in there called kataifi, Kataifi, which is really good. It's
Okay,
got
I
some
would never
honey
want
in
to spell
it.
that, but
Yeah.
kataifi. So, okay, honey in it. So what does
Yeah.
it taste like? Like, what are we
Well,
talking about?
well, best to show you.
That's the shit.
Yeah.
I love that. We're about to try some kataifi here in a
That's
second.
what I was gonna try when you asked.
In a
me,
second,
so.
in a second. Okay, I can't wait. I cannot wait. So this is coming up, folks. We're about to try some of this amazing food at National Bakery. So a couple more questions for Georganna. So what has changed for you as a kid since growing up here? I mean, since, your grandparents being here in the 40s all the way to now. I mean, what are some of the memories that you can think of? What traditions have stuck? What have not? Tell us a little bit about.
I mean, that's what I love about the sponge docks. So a lot of people look at as a negative. I look at it as a positive, and tourists like that too when they come to the docks. They love to see that it's just like it was when I came and I brought when I was here. Now I'm bringing my kids here. So I'm not to say that things haven't changed, but I love that the docks hasn't for me, and that's why a lot of people see things as they might see things as run down or not up, kept up, but that there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining this look and maintaining the building. So to me, all the traditions that I had growing up are still here, and that's why I love these streets. And again, as you can see people coming in and out. A lot of the locals that are a lot of the people that have, I guess you'd say the more recent locals that have moved here, newcomers. They don't necessarily know about it, and what they see. I want them to see what I see, but it's a hard thing to relay to people who didn't grow up here. But so to me, the traditions are all the same, and people coming in, I think we need to do a better job of helping them understand those traditions rather than calling them outsiders and creating that division.
You bring up a really good point. So I guess if there was one, how do I word it? If there was one piece of advice that you could give the new generation or the newcomers regarding Tarpon Springs and the culture and the traditions, what would that be?
It would just be that both sides need to be more accepting, right? I think we ask a lot of other people coming in to respect our traditions and this and that, but they don't understand them, and that's okay, you know what I mean? So we can't expect people to move here and just respect our Greek traditions and our holidays and that without explaining what they are, and we don't really have a mechanism for that. So I'm hoping, and that's the city's job. We do have a museum and everything, but there's no education really about the history of Tarpon. They talk about Citizens Academy and things like that, but like currently our Heritage Museum, you got to pay to go into it, and it should be a little bit more inviting to people coming and to educating them about it. Because a lot of people that have moved here more recently, and then there's the people that have their roots here, and it's this like competition of who loves the town more, and that's silly to me. I had a friend who told me that once, that I didn't grow up here, and I may not love the town as much as you do, but I do love it. And to me, it's not that I want you to love it as much as I do, but at the same time, my feelings growing up here are more complex than just that, because when you've grown up here, all of your whole life is here. So all of your problems, everything you've ever gone through is here. It's on these streets. My date with my first boyfriend was down at the docks. So our memories, go back, for years. I mean, I was three years old when we were working at the store down there.
Wow.
So to me, all the things that people say negatively about the docks, it hurts me because it's degrading to my memories and to my childhood. Because all I see, when I see the same thing is memories, and I know you saw that video I posted on Facebook, and it reached a lot of people that a lot of my friends who don't live here anymore enjoy that, and it brings them back home, that live other parts of the country.
It seems like the culture never leaves the city. The people do, but sometimes, but for the most part, I think Tarpon Springs, as someone who's lived here now 4 years, and being a Tampa native, and like I was telling you, my parents in North Clearwater Beach, and 6 months in Ireland, 6 months there, and I chose Tarpon Springs because I've been coming here since I was a little kid, and absolutely loved it. As a boater, as a fisherman, as someone who enjoys friendly people. I come from an Irish culture. Grew up in Ireland. Spent my summers there. I think the Irish and the Greek have a lot in common. when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where I think Tarpon Springs is such a destination. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And it's kind of like the restaurants. I was speaking to someone the other day outside the office, and I sell real estate. My main office is in Dunedin, and I was speaking to some snowbirds, and they were like, "Yeah, we love Tarpon Springs, but we get tired of Greek food." I'm like, "It's not just Greek food."
Yeah.
I'm like, we're sitting across from like one of the best sushi places I've been in a while, the Oishi. So it's not just Greek food. I mean, the culture of the Greeks is here, and it's fantastic, and you can't go wrong with it. But at the same time, this is a destination, and I think just judging by we're on a gloomy day, it's raining, every parking space is full.
Yep.
We had to find places to park just today, and
People will always find a place to park. And as far as that, I've had a lot of people talk, and I'm half Greek, by the way, too. So my mom was from Wisconsin, 100%. She called herself Heinz 57. So, but, so I get both sides because I'm, but my mom chose to, when she married my father, to do it the way that the church wants you to do it, which is to get baptized. And she raised us, she got herself baptized, and she raised us in the Greek Orthodox faith. So, I get it when, because when people come in and feel like outsiders, my mom felt like that, and some people never truly accepted her, and we're changing. Obviously, there's a lot more, the generation is a lot more mixed now, but we've continued to keep, our faith and our traditions here. But I've had people ask me, it's like, well, what do you think about a store or a restaurant, something like that that's not Greek? I'm like, listen, it's a business. Everyone here has the same goal, right? Is to make money and be successful. As a property owner at the docks, you can't dictate what kind of business people run. We all want to be successful down here. And that's something else that I know a lot of people like, where's the best octopus? And I do not like people pitting restaurants against each other. It's delicious everywhere. Everybody makes it differently. Everyone makes food differently. Growing up, we used to go to Costa's and they made the best keftetas. And where, Artemis is the Tarpon Social Club, that's Mama's, that used to be Mama Maria's.
Yep.
And it's the same family. Costa's, Mama's and Mama Maria's, all the same family. They used to have Yanni's, which is now the Acropolis.
Yeah. Tanya and Joe, yes.
And I actually talked to Joe, so I took the city manager for a tour after the hurricanes because they were trying to take away, remember the Seafood Festival, after the hurricanes. And even though I'm not a huge fan of all of the festivals we have down here because sometimes it takes away from the business of our stores, especially during this peak season, which is now. They were redoing it because they really got flooded, Yanni's. And I met Joe, Tanya's husband, and he was like, what should we do? Should we do Yanni's or Acropolis? And I was like, well, it was Yanni's. He goes, well, if we do Acropolis, it's going to be the Acropolis from Tampa. And I said, do Acropolis.
So it's funny that so Joe actually lives next door to my parents. Out at the beach. And Joe
and he's from Chicago.
And from Chicago. Yep. Just met his wife for the first time the other day.
They're great people.
Yeah, lovely, great people.
They got tons of other restaurants, and
they look after my parents quite a bit, which I'm very, very thankful for them. But
and I love Acropolis, and I've had we had our Sponge Docks Association meeting there.
Yeah, the Merchants Association.
No. This is something I'm starting alone.
Okay.
The Sponge Docks Association.
Tell us about this.
Well, for years, there's a Tarpon Springs Merchants Association, right? But years ago, there was a Property Owners Association, and so this Sponge Docks Association is geared more towards the property owners and the business owners, and it's extremely important. The Merchants Association does a great job, but it's important for the people that are running these associations to have long-term investments, that something that actually affects them if it doesn't work out, right? Mm-hmm. So what the point of the Sponge Docks Association is to make sure that we have a say in events and things like that, because a lot of times, peak season, right, is from, basically the end of, December when all the snowbirds are down through Easter, basically. Mm-hmm. So that's when everybody's here, and our stores do very well then. So when you have festivals where you have other vendors coming in, right, sitting in front of our stores, people are going to come to the docks regardless. They don't know that these festivals are happening. They're coming with cash to spend, and then all of a sudden, instead of spending that cash in our stores, they might be sending it on some vendor who's from out of town, right, through some promotion company. So the point, and that was really upsetting, especially after the hurricanes, because it hit us very hard. Those 2 hurricanes in a row. Our store flooded 6 feet, and we were up and running by October 25th after those storms.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And a lot of these stores down here, including ours, don't have flood insurance. So they did that out of their own pocket. And
the goal is to keep the money local.
Right, and that should be the goal of the Merchant Association, right? But I think that it's gotten a little off track as to where the vendors are making this money, and these vendors are not local. It's not helping our local merchants. So the point of the association is to be a little bit more control of property owners and the business owners of the docks. And so to make sure that they have a say, and that, we can have those events, but not necessarily off season, so that during the peak season, the business owners of our town, our tenants, and our business owners can make money, because they got a lot of rent to pay, and more local people come to a lot of those events, from local areas. But there are tourists that come from like Michigan every year, coming down to the sponge docks. So we want to. The point, the association is to make sure first people aware of the city, the changes that the city is making, so to keep the business owners and the property owners informed of what the city's doing, because there's a huge disconnect between the city saying they want to help and promote businesses, at the same time undermining that, in terms of improvement, which is great. We want improvement, but we have to do proper planning to make sure that it's not interfering. It's not us against any other association, it's just us for ourselves, kind of that for us, by us.
Your passion for the sponge docks, it gleams through, and I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. It's such a special place.
In this book, it's called Strangers at Ithaca. It's about the sponge divers and how they came to Tarpon, and about the sponge diving industry here. And it's very special to me. My great-grandfather was a sponge diver, and he's actually
And what was his nickname?
Matemi. Called him the Iron Man because he could stay at the bottom for the longest. He had 12 paralytic strokes.
Oh my God.
So he's he worked there's a lot of sacrifices made for us to be here, and so we're very grateful for that.
So, all right. Well, now for the big one. Let's taste some food.
Okay, let's do it.